Today, we're going to talk about manifesting spiritual growth. So in our last masterclass, we learned about manifesting healing using the 5 steps of the M-Code technique. So M-Code is a short form for the manifestation code technique. And I think it's important to view the recordings of the Manifestation Codes Part 1 webinar so as to get a good grasp of each of these 5 steps and their purpose. I'm not going to expand too much on it. You can also view the video recordings on YouTube on manifesting abundance, peace, love, and healing, and learn how to apply these 5 steps in a practical way to manifest healing. Let's begin today with a quick recap. What are manifestation codes? They are codes that occur in nature, and they contain words that serve as specific links that connect our manifestation thoughts with all the beings and creation of nature that will deliver what we seek to manifest. As I said in our last class, how are our prayers answered? Usually through people and other creations of nature. Hence, these codes connect our manifestation thought with the thoughts and energies and vibrations of all those that are going to be inspired by nature to respond to our invocation of manifestation. These codes can be very powerful if used correctly. So let us quickly recap the 5 steps of the M-Code technique. Step 1 is to come up with the manifestation proposition thought. What do we wish to manifest? Step 2 is to apply introspective reasoning to ensure that we fully understand what we seek to manifest and why. Then step 3 is to empower that proposition thought through adding seeds of high vibration positive thoughts to our proposition. Next, we add the manifestation code to the proposition to engage it with nature's delivery mechanisms, thus giving it the greatest power possible. And step 4 is the invocation step, where we invoke this empowered thought with its manifestation code into nature and the universe, where it can germinate and cause manifestation of what we seek. We call this invocation our manifestation seed. And lastly, once we have made our invocation and thus planted our manifestation seed in nature, we can then consciously nurture it. So it's not that once we plant it, we forget about it. We have to consciously nurture it. And this is an ongoing process as we build our efforts to achieve our manifestation. So now let us proceed with the steps for manifesting spiritual growth. My dear friends, as we all know, each being has 2 key dimensions, a material one and a spiritual one. The material dimension encompasses our life and all its finite elements in the material world. Everything in this dimension, in the material dimension, is recognizable to us via sight, touch, and sound and other senses. And the material dimension also includes our memories of the past, conscious experiences of the present, and all our mental projections and perceptions of the future. The material dimension is finite and temporary. It ends when we leave this world physically. So we are all familiar with this dimension of our lives and how we have so far learned to manifest, for example, abundance, peace, love, and healing in this material plane using the M-Code technique. So today we're going to learn about manifesting spiritual growth, which is a very different dimension compared to the material one. The spiritual dimension is unseen and intangible. It is infinite and beyond human imagination. It is eternal and timeless. Suffice to say, it is of an abstract nature. Material world is of a defined nature. However, the life energy and intelligence that drives this material dimension comes from the spiritual level. We call it the soul. So the material and spiritual dimensions are deeply connected. This is why a being is comprised of a body, mind, and spirit or soul. So as we seek to manifest spiritual growth, our manifestation will draw upon both the material and spiritual dimensions. Now let us walk through the 5 steps for manifesting spiritual growth. Let us start with step 1, which is our proposition thought. Our proposition thought today is to manifest spiritual growth. So if we are all clear on that, what we wish to manifest, then we move to step 2, which is our introspective reasoning step. And here we will try our best to understand what we are seeking to manifest and why. This step is an internal dialogue within ourselves. So let us go through our reasoning step by step. Our first question is, what is spiritual growth? As I just said, we need to have a very clear understanding of what spiritual growth means and what impact it can have. So let us go back to the cycle of life definition from my first book, Reflections from the Origin, that I've shared with you many times. But today it has a specific significance, which is the origin or source or creator is light. Light brings life. Life brings experience. Experience brings knowledge. And knowledge is light. And that is the full cycle of life. So our soul is light. It comes from our creator. It endows us with life energy. As a result, we are able to travel this material world, go out every day, work, do all our material activities, and gain experience. And then this experience, when we reflect and learn from it, becomes knowledge, and knowledge is light. So if the soul were comparable to a ray of the sun, then at the beginning, you can tell the difference between the ray and its parent, the sun, because the ray is not as bright. But as we grow in knowledge and light, this ray gets brighter and brighter until at one point you cannot tell it apart from its source. And that is the fulfillment of the soul. So this definition, my dear friends, ties together the material and spiritual dimensions beautifully. And we are all familiar with how material growth transpires through external factors and individual initiatives. So how does spiritual growth transpire? It comes from gaining more knowledge and light, as we just talked about, from our material experiences, as expressed by the cycle of life. However, unlike material growth, spiritual growth is not influenced by external factors. It can be derived through pure, individual, and focused initiative. And this entails a conscious search for the light that makes up our soul, which is the light of life, and hence the light of our Creator, our source. So that's what spiritual growth entails. Now let us explore the parallels between material and spiritual growth. What do they have in common? In the material world, we start innocent and immature. Then we learn from experience. We learn from formal and informal education, from satisfying our thirst for knowledge, which all make us grow mature and gain wisdom. This is the high-level view of material growth, which projects itself externally. Now, spiritual growth follows similar lines, but it manifests and is experienced internally as we convert our material experiences to knowledge as we contemplate deeper spiritual knowledge and literature, as we meditate daily in search of our higher self or soul, and as we begin to live consciously in our spiritual realm, which reveals to us the extraordinary in the ordinary in our daily lives. And today we're going to try and understand that a lot deeper, the extraordinary in the ordinary in our daily lives, because it comes out from the manifestation code for spiritual growth. So this is how spiritual growth occurs. It is an inner evolution. We cannot see it, but we can know it and live it. So spiritual growth places us in an enlightened state of being. It elevates our minds towards enlightened thought that come from the spiritual realm. So spiritual growth also elevates our material experiences in a deeply enriching manner. So when we seek to manifest spiritual growth, this is what we are seeking, an infinite growth from within. So the best formula for achieving this is a balance between the material and the spiritual. People who live with material and spiritual balance are whole. Their growth is constant, both internally and externally. And their experiences are a rich blend of the ordinary and extraordinary. Such people project aspects such as inner peace, external peace, the ability to love completely and deeply, the ability to unite. They project abundance and contentment and constant gratitude. They project pure humility and more. These are people who are whole, people who have achieved that material spiritual balance in this world. And this balance completes us as beings with perfection that transcends this imperfect world. This balance completes us as beings with perfection that transcends this imperfect world. Now, in today's world, I would say material growth enjoys priority over spiritual growth, and I think we can all agree on that. Therefore, we need to shift towards this healthy balance between the two. And this brings us to the next question, which is, how should I approach manifesting spiritual growth? Here, once again, I believe a holistic approach is the best way forward. An approach that draws upon a healthy balance between the material and the spiritual. And we should treat them as one rather than separate. Because in reality, they are inseparable. Material and spiritual planes are inseparable. Spiritual elements reside in everything in the material world. And material experiences enrich the soul through knowledge. So they are really one. And we are all beings of a holistic makeup, whether we realize it or not. Now, what is the most important instruments that governs our material experience? It is, my dear friends, the mind, which sees, perceives, and processes everything. The mind is a great gift. And the mind plays an important role in what ultimately becomes knowledge and light from experience. Not all material experiences are of a level that become knowledge. Some experiences can be basic distractions of little value and not worth wasting time on. But what does it take to know the difference? It takes mental clarity, wisdom, and foresight to identify and focus on the experiences that are of real value. And today we will touch on that part too further. And this is a judgment that has to be made at a very personal level by each one of us, because each of us is walking a different path with different experiences of the world. So there is no common uniform way. It's personal. And in a nutshell, from a holistic perspective, the mind is a key instrument of our journey and hence shaping it correctly is of critical importance. Now, how can we approach shaping of our minds to a level where balancing the material and spiritual becomes possible? Here are some possible transformational avenues, and you can think of more of your own. One is to upgrade the way we think, and we have to sit back, reflect, and see how we need to change to be able to live with this balance. I would say it's an upgrade of the way we think. Second is enhance the way we view others and how we interact with them in a very honest fashion. Third is to augment the way we view nature and the environment and our place in it. Look at our place in creation now, from that mental state that knows that there is a spiritual side and a material side to everything. Next, reshape our approach towards giving and sharing from what we receive. Next is make a conscious effort towards resolving our inner and outer conflicts. And there is many more. So with further contemplation, I'm sure you can add more avenues to this list. So this is how we shape the mind. And this brings us to the next question. What is the purpose that I wish to accomplish from manifesting spiritual growth? Why do I want to manifest spiritual growth? I believe we have just answered the first half of this question in some detail, which is to achieve a balance between the material and spiritual. And as we have discussed several outcomes of spiritual growth in this regard, so we are clear on that. But the second part of our purpose, which represents the ultimate goal of every soul, is to achieve an enlightened state of being that brings us closer to our Creator, with the hope of achieving oneness with the light of our source, our origin, or whatever name we choose to ascribe to our Creator. And this represents the highest achievement for a soul. And here we must recognize that while we can put in all the efforts towards this goal, it is not our right to receive. This oneness or union comes as a grace and a blessing from our source. And those of us that put in the effort have the best chance of receiving this blessing. Remember, when you put your fishing line in the water, you have a chance of catching a fish. If you don't put your line in the water, you have no chance of catching a fish. It's plain and simple as that. Now, in the masterclass series on the 10 stages of the soul, we have covered the spiritual growth of the soul in detail from stage to stage and connected it to the material side of life too, until the final union and dissolution is achieved by the soul into its source. So I would recommend revisiting the video recordings of stages 1 to 10 on our YouTube channel, especially after we have gained more understanding today. So in our introspective reasoning today, we have derived two key things. One, which is the essential objective of achieving a balance between the material and spiritual. And two is the attainment of the highest goal of our soul, which is oneness with our Creator or Source. These are the two that have come out of our reasoning today. So now let's move to step 3, which is the proposition thought, empowerment. And this step has two parts, both of which empower our proposition thought. The first part involves contemplating seeds of high vibration positive thoughts, and the second part involves adding the applicable manifestation code of nature to our proposition. So let us consider contemplating seeds of high vibration positive thoughts. What are they? For that, we have to address the question, why do I wish to manifest spiritual growth? In today's introspective reasoning, we did cover a number of reasons associated with spiritual growth. But let's spend a few moments on some examples. And here are 6 quick ones that I will suggest. Number 1, I seek to manifest spiritual growth to achieve true inner peace and to be able to project this peace outwards towards all of humanity. So this seed has a selfish and unselfish dimension, but it is indeed a very empowering thought of high vibrations. Number 2, I seek to gain the ability to love fully and deeply with all levels of my being, so that I may be able to experience love in all its dimensions and be able to love my family and loved ones and all of humanity and all of creation. For I know that love is the bloodstream that flows with and into pure peace. Manifesting spiritual growth will lead me to achieving this purpose. So this seed has a selfish and an unselfish dimension, but again, it is an empowered thought of high vibrations, and it leads back to peace. Number 3, I seek to become a uniting force at all levels of my being, so that I may be able to experience unity and in all its dimensions, and be able to live in unity with my family and loved ones, and spread this unity to all of humanity, all of creation. For I believe that unity is a source of happiness, peace, and resolution of all conflict, which are all dearly needed in my world today. Manifesting spiritual growth will enable me to attain this pure unity. Now, this is a very powerful seed with very wide and positive impact, and it goes back to peace, because remember, spiritual growth and peace are deeply interwoven, as you learned in the 10 stages of the soul. Number 4, I seek to attain and experience abundance and containment and contentment through a balance between my material and spiritual being, and share this abundance for the well-being of my family and loved ones and all those in the world who will benefit from it. This is a powerful seed also that can positively impact oneself and many others. Number 5, I seek to live with constant gratitude through my spiritual and material balance, so that I may be able to truly thank the universe, thank my Creator for all its endless blessings, and spread this gratitude to all my fellow beings and to nature. So in principle, this intention is a selfless proposition with great power, and we actually practice this in our Sharing Hope meditation, where we spread our gratitude. Number 6 is the ultimate goal for all of us. I seek to attain oneness with my Creator and experience true enlightenment through my spiritual growth. I also seek to inspire and spread this blessing of light to all my fellow beings and nature, so that peace, happiness, and oneness may prevail in my world. This seed is also of an extremely high vibration and power, with wide-reaching positivity. So these are some examples of positive seed thoughts that can help raise the vibrational level of our proposition thought considerably. Now we can move to the second part of the proposition thought empowerment step, which is the addition of the manifestation code of nature, which I believe today is one of the best parts. As I explained in the part 1 webinar, nature provides what is needed to manifest what we seek through universal codes that resonate with every creation in an equal and exact fashion. These codes are extremely powerful, and their power lies hidden in their subtlety. The type of manifestation code we choose depends on what we seek to manifest. Because remember, manifestation happens through the participation of our fellow creation. They are inspired to participate by nature. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. So what is the manifestation code of spiritual growth? It goes by the following words: by the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. I'll repeat it one more time. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. Now, how is this code connected to spiritual growth? Let us look at the sacred springs first. What is a spring? The published literature defines a spring as a natural discharge point of underground water through an opening or openings in the rocks. This water can be discharged at ground surface or directly into the bed of a stream or lake or the sea, from where it can ultimately surface. Good definition. Let me repeat it. So a spring is a natural discharge point of underground water through an opening or openings in the rocks. This water can be discharged at the ground surface or directly into the bed of a stream, lake, or the sea, from where it can ultimately surface. So a spring comes from unseen water flowing under the ground, which then emerges into the seen at the ground surface, where it manifests as a beautiful spring. Here are some meanings we can draw from the word sacred springs. Let us start with its water. So water is the essence of life, and life is conveyed through water in all living things in our world. If there's no water, there's no life. And as I've mentioned to you many times before, a seed can be under the ground for 500 years. Nothing happens. Then that droplet of water touches the seed and it springs to life. So water is regarded as a carrier of life. It is regarded as the most intelligent element on our planet. And we discussed water and its essence and its abilities to store and project thoughts and information in our last masterclass, which was on how to manifest healing. So I won't go into it again, but please view the recording of this class. My dear friends, water has a deeply sacred dimension too, many sacred dimensions. For example, the scriptures say that the human being was created by God using clay. Clay that is used to create forms contains water. So the human being was created from clay and water, which is earth and water. The scriptures continue by saying that God breathed a part of himself, i.e., life, into this clay. As we discussed earlier, water has the capacity to carry life, and hence the life mentioned in the scriptures was bestowed by the Creator into the water that was in the clay. This revelation of the scriptures and the ability of water to carry life makes it sacred, deeply sacred. And when we are resetting our mindset, as we spoke earlier, this is one important aspect, that water is deeply sacred. So the meaning of sacred springs can be understood as water that emerges from the unseen, i.e., underground, into the seen, i.e., above ground. Or in other words, if water is life, then life, which is light, that emerges from the unseen to the seen. That, my dear friends, is a sacred spring. It is like life, and life which is light, that emerges from the unseen, i.e., underground, to the seen, above ground. That is a sacred spring. Now, the word sacred spring in the manifestation code is expressed in plural. i.e., springs, which ascribes a multiple dimension to it. What does that mean? Let us look at a spring from a spiritual perspective. Each one of us embodies life energy, which is the life that the Creator breathed into us according to the scriptures. This life energy flows through every element of our being. It flows just like a spring does. We cannot see this life energy, just like we cannot see the source water of a spring under the ground. Both are unseen. But life energy is expressed within the seen through all living creatures. They are alive. They are alive because of their life energy, and we see it. So this is an expression of life energy in the seen. The minute life energy leaves, the creature dies. There is no more visible expression. It simply decomposes and disappears over time. This is also true for a spring. We see its physical expression within the scene, like a beautiful fountain or pool of water. The minute the flow in the unseen underground stops, the physical appearance of the spring ends and the fountain stops. The pool dries up and disappears. Just like when a creature disappears after death, so does the spring. It disappears too. So, my dear friends, the sacred spring, as it relates to each of us, is the light or life that resides in every cell in our being, which is unseen, which we then express in our in our living physical form. We express this life. We express the intelligence of this life through our words and actions. We are all identified by the expressions of our sacred spring. We're all identified by the expressions of our sacred spring in this world. Realizing this and fully understanding and knowing this reality is what spiritual growth is all about. Now, you can see why I repeatedly reference the goal of seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. The ordinary is seen via the physical form. The extraordinary is seen by the expressions of life that come from this physical form, that emerge from the physical form, that emerge from its sacred spring, not just in humans, in all creation. If each creation is a sacred spring, then collectively we are sacred springs, hence the plural word springs. Every moment of our lives, we see sacred springs revealed before us in all living things, in nature and its beautiful art, in human creations, in everything, including the stars in the skies or the celestial bodies and the universe. Spirituality encourages us to see the life or light which is extraordinary, that is present in each ordinary form. That is one of the reasons why we are here in this world, to learn and recognize this key facet of our journey of the soul. Now let us come back to the cycle of life again with this new understanding. The origin is light. Light brings life. Life brings experience. Experience brings knowledge, and knowledge is light. So let us start with the origin is light. This is the reference to the moment of our creation, where the creator or origin created us. So the origin or creator is light. Then the origin breathes his light into us. He breathes life into us. Hence, light brings life. Then we manifest in this world and are surrounded by life everywhere, by sacred springs like us everywhere. We experience each sacred spring we encounter with whatever it brings to us. That is experience. So life brings experience. Now, each expression of every creation is an expression of its life or light that resides in the unseen. So each experience embodies this light, and we derive the light that it carries. And that is how we gain knowledge. And knowledge is light. Our soul is light. So let me repeat that part. Each expression of every creation is an expression of its life or light that resides in the unseen. If you see a flower in a garden, you see a human being, you hear music, every expression, everything we experience is an expression of the light that resides in the unseen because it has life. So each experience embodies light, and that is true knowledge. So when we learn from experience and we derive the light that it carries, that is how we grow in knowledge. And knowledge is light. Our soul is light. So this knowledge brings ever-growing light to our soul. And this, my dear friends, is why we're here in this world. This is what we're here to accomplish. When I wrote The Cycle of Life in 1995, which came to me by inspiration, I understood parts of it. Then as I grew in experience and knowledge, I understood more. And this week, as I was downloading our class and writing about the sacred spring and the life and its expressions in our material world, and writing about these sacred springs, it made everything become clear. And that was a truly humbling realization. That cycle of life now is crystal clear. Knowing this, we can all now understand the cycle of our life. And we can understand the gift of life. And from here on, we will not waste any more time on experiences that do not enrich us with knowledge. And this, my dear friends, is wisdom. Wisdom of life, wisdom of light, for which we are eternally grateful. So that is why nature's manifestation code reveals to us the words, by the sacred springs. And these words, when invoked, place us within the extraordinary as we journey through the ordinary. This brings us to the next part of the code, which is, and sandalwood smoke. Such mystical words, and sandalwood smoke. Sandalwood smoke. Let us talk about the sandalwood tree and its spiritual symbolism that is present in most cultures and faiths around the world. Here's what the published literature says. It says that the sandalwood is one of the most sacred trees in the world. It is believed to have numerous spiritual and mystical properties. And the heartwood, or the inner trunk of this tree, which has a sweet and uplifting fragrance, has been used since ancient times for prayer, meditation, relaxation, healing, protection, cleansing, and even for accessing higher states of consciousness. That was one. Number two, this heartwood or inner trunk takes many, many long years to develop. It is heavy and is known to retain its powerful fragrance for decades. Buddhists use this sandalwood for their statues and beads because apart from the rest of its symbolism, its fragrance does not disappear like all other scent-bearing woods. It has the greatest longevity of all fragrant woods. Number three, sandalwood is considered a symbol of protection in many ancient cultures. It is because the inner trunk or heartwood of this tree has a leathery quality to it and cannot be eaten by termites or other insects. Termites tend to eat the outer layer, which is called sapwood. Inner layer is heartwood. So they tend to eat the outer layer. But the inner layer always remains intact, which is a Very interesting fact. Other than this, sandalwood is historically believed to have a powerful energy that is associated with raising one's vibration levels well above the vibrations of negativity. Number 5, sandalwood is also believed to have a deeply healing effect on the mind, body, and spirit. Its fragrance is deeply calming, and that's how it affects one's being. It calms one's being, just like practicing spirituality does. This is why sandalwood has been used for meditative and contemplative practices in many cultures across the world since ancient times. Number 6, then there is a hypothesis, and I call it a hypothesis, that sandalwood stimulates the pineal and pituitary gland, which releases negative programming, brings clarity, promotes intuition and understanding and creativity energy, and helps connect one to higher consciousness. Whilst I've not seen any scientific verification of this, it does tie in with what human beings have believed in and practiced since ancient times. So there must be something to it. And it's practiced since ancient times universally across the globe. So I'm putting these common beliefs out here as a subject for further research for those who wish to dig deeper. And if you find something striking, please share it with us. Now, in addition to these popular beliefs, I would like to share a personal experience with you that may add to our understanding of sandalwood smoke. When I was inspired with the manifestation code for spiritual growth, which is by the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I paused for a moment and thought, sandalwood smoke. Where else have I come across sandalwood smoke before? It took me back to when I was inspired with the words of the cycle of life, which I shared with you when we discussed the sacred springs. Because at that time in 1995, I was also, when I was doing my writings, I was blessed with a vision of a great soul that I will now share with you. This vision, the vision goes as follows, and I will paraphrase what I wrote. The chapter is entitled The New Land. It is in my first book, Reflections from the Origin. So I'll just paraphrase it. So it was about 6 a.m., just about daybreak. And I was staying in a log cabin near a lake in the woods. And I stepped out of the cabin and began to walk towards this lake. The air was fresh and cool, and the sensation of the cold dewdrops against my bare feet on the grass woke me up completely. Then, just before I got to the lake, I saw a cloud resting on the grass. I walked towards this cloud, and when I stepped into its midst, I saw the glowing silhouette of a tall man wearing what looked like a long robe. He must have been at least 6 feet tall or more. Somehow I felt at peace. I just continued to walk towards him. I was drawn to him like a magnet somehow. And as I got close to him, about 3 feet away, I could see a soft glow of light coming out, emerging from his eyes. I could not see his face. He had no facial features, which is curious, no facial features, just the glow of his eyes. I was not afraid of this stranger at all. On the contrary, I felt a deep sense of joy in his presence. He was a great soul, and somehow, when I saw him, we knew each other. I knew who he was. And he spoke to me about many things. This was a very important day for me. He spoke to me about many things, such as the great religions that have come in this world and their messengers, and why so many forms of scriptures have been endowed upon humanity, verbally and in writing. How humanity unfortunately ended up worshipping the messengers rather than focusing on their message. He predicted the evolution that humanity will go through with the onset of spirituality, which will become the norm. He predicted this at that time, 1995. He emphasized the importance of pure humility and not seeking worldly recognition for your actions and words. He said the reason he had no facial features was because he did not seek human recognition. He did not want human recognition. He said he himself was absolutely unimportant. What mattered was the message he was carrying. And he spoke about a lot more. Some that I could share in my book, and some that have had to remain private. Then, as the sun began to emerge, the mist began to thin, and I recognized that this great soul was actually standing before me in a smoke filled with the beautiful fragrance of sandalwood. It was like this blessed smoke was flowing from his being. And the sandalwood fragrance, what a remarkable fragrance it was. It left a deep impact on me. And every time I smell sandalwood, I remember my friend, the stranger in the cloud. So when the word sandalwood smoke appeared in the manifestation code for spiritual growth, I immediately remembered the great soul I had been blessed with to encounter. My dear friends, clearly, sandalwood smoke is a symbol of a higher spiritual state. And as we discussed before, we will find sandalwood smoke in many temples, sacred spiritual sites, and places of worship. In my experience, I have noted that when a blessed soul emerges into our material plane, for whatever reason, like that of the great soul I just talked about, the fragrance of sandalwood usually accompanies such souls, at least for as long as the soul is in our material plane, I believe. It is a hallmark of purity that accompanies such souls in this impure world. Hallmark of purity that accompanies such souls in this impure world that we live in. So I do consider sandalwood smoke myself as being a purifying element. I don't know if you've encountered this, but sometimes when we are in a sacred or spiritually elevated atmosphere, the soft fragrance of sandalwood appears, even if it's just for a second. I don't know if you have experienced this, you must have. Sandalwood fragrance has also been experienced many times in our group healing meditations we have carried out around the world over the years. And people who've experienced it have asked about it. Some of them may be here with us today. In my understanding, this fragrance is reflective of the presence of elevated souls in that space, in that atmosphere at that time. They are there because of the purity of the purpose of that meditation. So, my dear friends, sandalwood smoke is affiliated with an elevated spiritual state, which is what we are seeking to achieve through manifesting spiritual growth. So when we now look at the wording of the manifestation code for spiritual growth by the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, the sacred springs in this code invokes the reality that life emerges from the unseen and flows into the seen, where it expresses itself physically in the seen. I will repeat it one time. Life emerges in the unseen and flows into the seen, where it expresses itself physically in the seen. And sandalwood smoke reveals that this life is deeply sacred, and realizing life and its light leads to true spiritual elevation. I'll repeat that. The sandalwood smoke reveals that this life is deeply sacred, and realizing life and its light leads to true spiritual elevation. Beautiful, isn't it? It takes nature to select such words, few words, with such poetic accuracy. And when you invoke this code, you will initiate events in your life and bring people in your life that will enable you to achieve spiritual growth you are seeking, not just people, teachings, literature, whatever you need, whatever tools you need will begin to appear. Which brings us to the next step in the M code technique, which is the invocation step. This step involves invoking our manifestation and placing it in the hands of nature. So let us start with internalizing the manifestation code for spiritual growth. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. Let's repeat that. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. Now let us take a few moments to internalize this code deep within our beings. So close your eyes and sit back and breathe freely. Be at complete peace and let all your tensions and worries and everything go. Breathe in freely and be at peace. And imagine you're standing in front of a large pool of beautiful sacred springs. And behind these springs are trees with luscious green leaves. The crystal clear water of the springs is sparkling in the sunshine. Take a moment and look at the sacred springs. And now repeat the words, by the sacred springs. By the sacred springs. By the sacred spring. Now imagine a soft mist of sandalwood smoke standing in front of the sacred springs. You can see the springs behind it because it is not so dense. You then sense this beautiful fragrance of sandalwood, a divine fragrance. You inhale this sacred fragrance. It uplifts your soul. It makes you feel very happy. As you repeat, and sandalwood smoke, and sandalwood smoke, and sandalwood smoke. Now repeat the manifestation code. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke. And you may open your eyes. So, that's how we internalize our manifestation code. Now we move to the invocation of spiritual growth. And here are the words I would suggest for the invocation. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth. Growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. I'll repeat that. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth. Growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. The words of this invocation are our manifestation seed, which we plant in nature or the universe, from where it can germinate and yield what we are seeking to manifest. You can present this invocation to nature as often as you wish. Now, this invocation can also be practiced in a deeper manner, in a more focused way, through a short meditation. Let us practice it together. And I apologize, we might run a few minutes late, but this meditation is also very important for those who wish to learn it. So once again, close your eyes and sit back and breathe freely. Let go of all your worries, tensions, and emotions, and focus on the word peace for a few moments. Peace. Now imagine you are back at the large pool of beautiful sacred springs. Behind these springs are trees with luscious green leaves. The crystal clear water of the springs is sparkling in the sunshine. In the middle of the pool, you see little fountains spurting at the surface of the pool. These fountains come from water that has flowed from below the earth to the surface of the pool. Look at the gentle little fountains as they emerge from the unseen to the seen. The water in the sparkling pool is relatively calm despite these little fountains. Look at how pure this water is. You can see the little rocks at its bottom. Feel the energy of these springs and let it flow through your being. Take a moment and connect with these sacred springs and feel their energy and let it flow through your being. And now you repeat the words, by the sacred springs, by the sacred springs. Repeat these words in your mind for a few moments. By the sacred springs. By the sacred spring. Now imagine a soft mist moving very slowly from the left side of the springs towards the right. It keeps moving to the right very slowly until it is directly in front of the springs. And then it stops moving. You take a couple of steps forward until you are right next to this mist. You can see the springs behind it because it is not so dense. You then get this beautiful fragrance of sandalwood, a divine fragrance. And you realize that the mist is, in fact, sandalwood smoke. You inhale its sacred fragrance that uplifts your soul. Take a moment and bask in this beautiful sacred setting of the springs amidst sandalwood smoke. And take in the fragrance of the sandalwood smoke. And you now repeat, and the sandalwood smoke, and the sandalwood smoke. Repeat these words for a few moments. You now repeat, by the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth. Invoke spiritual growth. Let these words anchor deep within your being. Invoke spiritual growth. Repeat these words for a few moments. Invoke spiritual growth. Invoke spiritual growth. And now you repeat, growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. Nature, the provider of all. Let these words anchor deep within your being. Nature, the provider of all. Repeat these words for a few moments. Nature, the provider of all. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth. Growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. By the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth. Growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. Repeat this invocation once more in your mind. And you can anchor this thought, and you can remain consciously anchored in spiritual growth by repeating the words, I am growing spiritually. I am growing spiritually. I am growing spiritually. Growing spiritually. You may open your eyes. Now, if you wish to use your own religious beliefs in your manifestation invocation, you can substitute the word nature with whatever name you choose to call upon the one who you believe to be your provider. I've chosen nature because it's a universal word and because that's where the manifestation codes come from. And they resonate beautifully with the word nature, but it's entirely up to you. You need to believe deeply in your provider. That is extremely important. So this is the invocation part of the M code technique. And next we move to the final step, which is nurturing your manifestation seeds. And once you've decided your proposition thought and gone through your introspective reasoning and then empowered your proposition thought, you have now invoked it and placed it as a seed of manifestation in nature. The process does not end here. You have to nurture your seed of manifestation. The wording of this seed, as we just learned, is by the sacred springs and sandalwood smoke, I invoke spiritual growth, growth by the grace of nature, the provider of all. So you've planted this manifestation seed in nature or the universe, from where it can germinate and yield what you are seeking to manifest. So how do you continue to nurture this seed? Very quickly. Firstly, we can repeat our invocation periodically, like say once a week or even more frequently, if you wish, daily, if you wish. And repeating this invocation and focusing on it is one way of nurturing your manifestation seed. Or you can practice the spiritual growth meditation, which we just did. And I will try and extract a video clip of just this meditation part so that you can use it as a daily tool. So it will be on YouTube when I release this, the video of today's session. We also have the video tool for manifesting love and manifesting healing on the YouTube as well, the meditation itself. You can also start your day every morning by using your anchor thought of spiritual growth. And we just practice that in our meditation. And you've all learned the technique of anchor thought. And we have 2 videos on YouTube which you can view on how to anchor thought and how to practice it. So today we have learned to apply the M-Code technique to anchor spiritual growth. As you practice it more often, it will become like second nature. It gets easier and easier. And I would like to conclude by thanking each one of you for being here today, for bringing your light, bringing your positive energy into the meditation. And I pray that the light of our Creator may always be with you to help you, guide you, protect you, and love you. Stay blessed, and I apologize for the 8-minute overrun. But it was very important, so I didn't want to cut anything short. Stay blessed.